course. So, hello and welcome to the webinar Azure Stack HCI single node cluster. Karim will inform us about the correct name. This webinar is in English because our presenter is from Redmond. Karim Hanif, I hope the name is correct. Karim is in the Azure Stack HCI product group, and he is responsible for the Azure Stack HCI single node feature. And Karim will present in the next half hour to 40 minutes, and we have a bit time for question and answer. So if you have questions, please feel free to type them on YouTube. And if you are not comfortable with English, type them in German, and I will translate them for Karim to answer them. So with no further ado, we will switch into the presentation. And after the presentation, I've also an announcement about the next presentation and the conference. So please stay in the webinar for afterwards. So I will now switch to Karim's screen. And hi, Karim. Hi to Redmond. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much, Carsten. How are you?
I'm fine. I have a work day already after. So I've done already my work. Now I'm doing a webinar with you, and then I will relax in the evening. But I'm good. I had Corona some weeks ago, so if I cough in the webinar, I try not to. That's because still something is going on. So, but now, Karim, start with the feature.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So today we are going to talk about the single node in Azure Stack HCI. And just to show you a little bit of the agenda, and Carsten, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me anytime. So what I want to cover today is just go through why we actually added this support to Azure Stack HCI. I want to go through some comparison tables of like multi-node versus single node. What are the differences, and how we made the announcement of this and when we made it. And I want to actually show some of the feedback that we heard, and then some of the changes that we did in the catalog, which partners that actually added support. And then I want to go through the documentation. It has some very valuable information, and we spent a lot of time updating it. And then touch a little bit about what's coming in the future for this feature. And then talk a little bit about how to install it. And I have a video of like an installation. And then we will hopefully have some time for Q&A. So that's the plan for today. Sounds good?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let's start. So why single nodes? So one of the main reasons for single node was customer demand. And we heard that customers are really liking the Azure Stack HCI promises, that it's an OpEx model compared to traditional CapEx. As you know, it's a subscription model. You get like one bill, one support agreement. It's consistent. So if you actually modernize your environment, your server environment, it's actually across the board. So you get consistency. And also they basically said that, okay, they like HCI, but they actually want flexibility. And especially this is like true for retail and big companies, enterprise companies. And because they basically say, okay, I have some location and it can actually tolerate low resiliency because I have thousands of them, right? And I actually want to reduce my hardware cost and Azure cost, and I want to also modernize those areas with this feature. And we also saw move from like competitors and even hardware partners moving in that space. So we also wanted to have a good presence in this space. So that's why we added the support. So continue on the multi-node versus single node. By design, what we wanted to do was we wanted to actually make a single node very similar to multi-node, like what everybody's used to. So that's why the deployment is through Windows Admin Center. We are actually even, going to I'm going to talk about this in the future slides, but we also want to add like some new features like an express setup to Windows Admin Center. It is, you will be able to do it, like customize it. You will be able to do it zero touch, because in those remote locations it will be important to actually have an easy setup. But the good thing is the single node is exactly the same as multi-node. It supports the full hypervisor storage networking, everything that HCI supports. It's like cluster management, just like HCI, everything is there. Because if you think about it, single node is actually a cluster with one node, so one server. So it uses clustering, it uses S2D, storage spaces direct, and all of those, and because of that, then it's managed through WAC. You can also use Arc and see it in Azure portal, just like HCI. It's in HCI catalog. We are going to look at that. Billing, registration, exactly the same. Pricing, exactly the same. So it's very similar, right? But of course, there are some differences, and in this slide, I wanted to talk about that. But it actually also, like, the support through Azure, connectivity, same as HCI. You can actually keep it disconnected up to 30 days, but then you need to connect it just like HCI. Storage spaces direct. So we support storage spaces direct, but the couple of the things is, of course, the fault domain awareness default. What you actually see in the storage spaces direct when you create a space, it can only be physical disk. It cannot be storage scale unit, which means that it cannot be, you cannot fail over to another node, right? There's no other node. So everything is a physical disk, can only be physical disk, which is expected because there's only one node and there are only physical disks. So it creates this storage space out of those disks, and it's only one node. You cannot have it like multi-node, of course. Host updates, if the host itself needs to update, it will, of course, require the VMs to go down, because the VMs will not live migrate to another node because there's no other node, right? So this is expected. So of course, that is the difference. That's another difference. You cannot do live migrate. You cannot do affinity rules, which is probably all expected. But other things like Azure benefits, all the HCI benefits, all like support of, like, for example, Windows Server 2022 Azure Edition, or Windows Server subscription. All of those things are all the same. GPU support is the same. SDN is supported, and then there's like stretch cluster, meaning like one node on each side is planned for future. It's not supported at the moment, but AKS HCI is also in preview mode. So there are those are the only two that are planned for future. But AKS HCI is supported, but it's in preview mode.
Karim, we have a question from the audience.
Sure.
Carl is asking, haven't seen single node in WAC 2208 preview, which has just been announced with cluster creation improvements. Is it going to be included in 2208? I assume not, but what is your opinion on that?
Correct. It's not. The support for Windows Admin Center deployment. So only the problem is that the deployment is not supported today. Mm-hmm. But once you deploy it through PowerShell, you can add it to Windows Admin Center and manage it, just like mm-hmm. you would another HCI server. So only the deployment part is missing, because we were actually like missing some validations, and also we were going to add this new feature, the Express setup, in 22H2 of HCI. That's why we didn't want to do any changes at this point, because all of those were coming in 22H2 anyway. So don't expect anything until HCI 22H2, next version of HCI, on the deployment on WAC. But I'm going to talk about like the deployment and installation through PowerShell, and it's very easy and very easy to do.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have the announcement of the support, the general availability of the support. We announced it on Build conference on May 24th this year, just a couple of months back, and we blogged it. And this is our blog, and I can actually show you real quick if I jump to my it's here. So we announced it, and as you can see, it's one of the most popular blogs, over 10,000 views. A lot of people are interested, and you can actually go ahead and see it and take a look at it if you like. So one thing that what happened was that there was a lot of interest in the media, like a couple of the magazines, like Redmond magazine, for example, was like #1. They actually put it on #1 key products hitting general availability. And then there was also another in the Australian channel, the CRN, also like mentioned it as the biggest announcements, one of the biggest announcements. So if you look at the one other thing that we did was that we went ahead and added. When we were preparing this feature, we were talking to a bunch of partners, and at launch time, currently actually at launch time we had 6, but now we had one more added, and now we have 7 partners right now supporting has systems. Like we have like. Right now, I think if you look at our catalog, 40 platforms and 151 solutions, and it's increasing every day. So I just want to show you the catalog. This is the catalog, as you can see, and we added this new filter to the catalog. And if you click on it, 1 to 4 systems, you can actually see that. You can see that there are, all these systems currently, 40 platforms, 151 solutions support a single node.
Cool.
You can just get one of these, They actually support, some of them are up to 4, but you can actually, if you get one of them, you can install install the product that way. One thing to note is that the single node systems only, and we have this in here too, can only use NVMe or SSD. So we actually don't support mixed type hybrid configuration. So if you click on this, for example, you can also see it in here. We have single node support. Like for example, this one doesn't have single node support because it has like hard disk drives. So no spinning drives, only NVMe or SSD is supported. All NVMe, all SSD supported. You can't mix and match. So that's important. And I believe a lot of customers, and when we talk to the customers, they were all okay with this because usually these systems are using the edge sites anyway, and they don't want any spinning drives. They want basically as reliable as possible. So they actually all want all SSD, all NVMe in those locations. That's what we heard from everyone. So that's our catalog, and as you saw, we had added this feature. I don't know, in the future, maybe we can actually have some customers, some partners, some OEMs have systems for only single node, right? And then we can actually change the filter and say one only, But today they actually have, 1 to 4, 1 to 2. They all support multiple nodes. So if we jump to the documentation, as you can see, we actually have 2 new articles. One of them is the this is like kind of like an overview on the right, and on the left we have the deployment article, and want to also show you that real quick. So the overview article goes through, like what you need to do, and talks of all the things that I'm mentioning in here. Like, for example, you must use PowerShell to create single node cluster. Single nodes must use only, all NVMe or SSD. All of those are actually mentioned in here. So don't worry if you haven't caught it. And it's, that comparison table that I showed is a very similar one is also there, and like known issues is there. Um, and then if you click on deployment, you can actually see how you can deploy it today. And the way you deploy today, like I mentioned, is PowerShell. And I'm going to talk about this. But we also have another section in here. If you want to actually change the single node to a multi-node, then what needs to happen? I talked about the fault domain awareness default in the storage spaces direct. So how do you change that to storage scale unit? Because what happens is you can add a node to a single node, and the cluster, easily adds it, and now you have a 2-node cluster. But underneath, the storage spaces direct needs to also change the fault domain awareness default from physical disk to storage scale units, right? So that doesn't happen automatically today. So you have to follow this article and see how you do it. But it is possible. You can actually do it, but it's a manual process today. And we have some plans, and I'm going to talk about them in the coming slides.
Karim, as far as I understood, if you change it from the default domain awareness, you have to rebuild your storage spaces direct, or is it possible to convert it?
You basically, what you do is you, like you said, you create a new storage spaces direct. Let's say because the second node will come with its disks, right?
Yeah.
So the other disks are going to come, and they're going to be added to the storage space. So let's say you had 5 disks, and you add now 5 more disks.
Yeah.
But the fault domain awareness default stays physical disk. So in order to change that, you create a new volume, and then you have to move your existing VMs from the old volume to the new volume, and then delete the old one.
So it's possible.
So that's the manual process.
Yeah, it's a manual process, but you will not lose your data if you have
no, you will not.
Space.
No.
So you can create a new volume that is spread over both hosts, and then you can move the data from the one volume that is only on one host on the volume that is spread over both hosts, right?
Yes,
so that's
because
great.
because the old one stays physical disk,
Yeah.
but the new one is storage scale unit, right? So you
Yeah.
can actually it takes advantage of the 2 nodes.
Okay.
So you have to move it to that manually. But we have been working on with our storage team, and we have a way to do it automatically. So as soon as you add it, we will transition and do all of that changes automatically. But that is coming in the future. It's not in
Cool.
21H2 yet, but we have plans for it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So you can easily go to multi-node. Because there are 2 camps, right? We see some customers that wants to use it only for single node. They don't want to go to multi-node. And some customers, especially small, medium business customers, wants to go to HCI, wants to start small, wants to try it first, and then add more nodes if they want to. So we see two types of customers. So this will actually help both of them.
So here's another question from Carl. So you are not creating a new storage pool plus new virtual disks, CSVs, or only virtual disks? Do you see the question, Karim?
Yes, I see it.
I'm not quite sure if I understand what Carl is meaning.
Same here.
Carl,
Carl,
please,
what I suggest is read the documentation that I mentioned, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach me, and we can definitely, I can definitely hope to help. I can help.
I would say there is a way to not lose your data, but of course you have to have enough space for it, I assume.
Yes, Yes, exactly. So that's why we actually recommend thin provisioning for thin provisioning.
Yeah.
And also like in the new plan, like I don't know how it is going to end up, but we are basically thinking about some sort of like a reserve, um, just to actually have this case where even if it's thin, even if it's like completely full, we have a way to automatically do that. That's the one that we're like building. So there are different thoughts on how to handle that, but we are considering all options,
Mhm.
all
Okay.
possibilities. Yeah. Okay. So we also so one of the limitations today is also the cluster aware updating. If you go to VAC, for example, Windows Admin Center, you can and then go to updates. Cluster aware updating for 21H2 doesn't work. But of course, there are other ways to update. You can go to sconfig, you can update, or even in Windows Admin Center, instead of Cluster Manager, if you go to Server Manager, and you can also update it there. So there's no problem. It's just that Cluster Manager didn't have this feature when we shipped, didn't support this single nodes when we shipped. But we actually, it's already fixed. We haven't. It's going to be in 22H2. But just to let you know, just to let all the customers know, we added this banner in Windows Admin Center Cluster Manager, so that you basically know that it's a single node cluster, and to update, you just have to follow this link. And this link takes you to our documentation and talks about like, okay, you need to use sconfig or the server manager to update it. It basically talks about that.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so what's coming? And these are our plans. Of course, they're subject to change, but we want to add more OEMs to the support so that every OEM actually has single node support. That's our goal. And like I mentioned, the Windows Admin Center deployment is something that we want to add, and we want to actually even further change that and add like an express setup. An express setup is going to is planned to be something like you can with a couple of questions you can easily install a cluster. It's you don't have to go through all the steps because it's a single node, so it's like very easy to set up. So that's one thing we're thinking. We added the catalog support, as you know, as I showed you, but we also want to add a sizer support because HCI sizer actually doesn't have single node support right now. So we want to add that. I also talked about the HTTP configuration after scaling up. We want to add that option. And some of the other things that happened, maybe I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like for example, we actually reduced the minimum data drive requirement to 2. So it was, and I can show you I have this also in here. So in SourceSpace's direct, article, minimum number of drives for Azure Stack HCI is reduced to 2. And for Windows Server, it's 4. So as you can see, there are some exclusive changes for HCI. And this was actually influenced by a single node.
So this I was not aware of this, Karim. I thought it
Yeah.
was only for the one node cluster, but it's in general for Azure Stack HCI
Yes.
that you can have only 2.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't
It's
know.
single. Yeah, it's single node. So each node can actually have, you can have multi-node, and each
Yeah.
node with 2 drives now today.
Okay, but
So
it has to be, of course, flash drives, right? It was not with HDDs and caching
correct.
unit.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
correct.
I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, so and these were all influenced by it actually came because we wanted to also reduce the number of like cost of single node, because that's a big thing, right? The customers, especially in the retail side, they actually want to like reduce their costs. So drive was like a big cost item, right? So, and there are some other surprises at Ignite. I can't talk about them right now, but stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Exactly.
Exactly. So there are other things coming.
Yeah, cool. And Ignite is in the second week of October. So
Correct.
this year is a little bit earlier than last year. It was in November, but now it's in October. So not too
Exactly.
far away to the surprises, right?
No, not too far away. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the installation, and then I have the video of the demo.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
the installation today is, like I mentioned, is super simple. You basically configure just like you would, go to sconfig and then configure IP addresses, do all the things that you always do, like enable RDP, computer name, whatever, time zone, add it to domain, make the user local admin, those kind of things, right? And then you install the required features with the install feature, and then make sure that you have all the updates installed, and then you reboot. You create a vSwitch, and then you create a cluster. And sometimes, like for example, in my case, in the demo, I used another physical computer, but I used a Azure VM. And by the way, Azure VMs are great for testing. You can actually use them either a Azure VM itself, or you can even use nested virtualization and have an Hyper-V inside an Azure VM and test it that way as well. So there are multiple ways to but both works for testing purposes, of course. And then you enable S2D. Then, of course, you need to register your cluster to be able to create new VMs, which is the requirement for HCI. And then you create VMs. It's very simple. And let me actually show you in this view. So this is the sconfig, as you know. It's in work group. As you can see, I have this one node. So I'm going to pause it time to time. I reduced it, but I think I went a little bit overboard. It goes super fast in some areas. So what I'm doing is I'm actually adding it to domain right now. And once I'm done, I'm going to restart the computer. Now I'm actually adding it. I added the, we missed it, but I added the administrators group, my user, to local admins. And now I am, sorry, I can't even.
Installing the features. This is a very fast one, right?
I know, this is super fast. So I'm installing this feature. Yeah, I don't know why I did it so fast. Okay.
And you're updating the system.
And now I'm adding the new vSwitch. And now this is what I had to do. You probably won't need to do it in Azure. I created these like disks, and I had to prepare them before I do S2D. They're all done. I'm creating a cluster. I created a cluster. Now I'm enabling storage spaces direct. Enable cluster S2D. And this will actually this will actually look at all the disks and, do a mirror. Now I'm actually registering. I'm using Windows Admin Center. I actually added it to Windows Admin Center, as you can see. Now I'm registering it through Windows Admin Center, but of course you can do it through PowerShell as well. And now I'm creating a volume. And after I create the volume, then I'm going to, okay, I'm done. Now I'm going to create a VM in that volume. It's a two-way mirror volume, as you can see. And now I'm creating a VM. I just wanted to show, you can do it all in Windows Admin Center, but of course you don't have to do it in Windows Admin Center. You can do it through PowerShell as well. Yeah. And yeah, I didn't install any OS, but just start the VM. Yeah, that's all in here. And so yeah, we can actually go through Q&A.
Cool. I have
With all the
one
content.
question
Mhm.
from Stefan, and I have also some clarification questions to you. But first, the question from Stefan.
Mhm.
A very popular thing people are waiting for is GPU virtualization.
Mhm.
And Stefan asks if that is coming. I answered him already. I don't know if you can answer that because it's not your feature, I guess.
Yes. So it is supported. I'm not sure if there are any hardware currently in the catalog with GPU. I can't remember, to be honest, but
Yeah, Lenovo, there were GPUs there.
it is supported. Yes, there's no limitation.
Yeah, but so you will support everything that is supported on a multi-node cluster,
Yeah.
like Azure Virtual Desktop. I saw, and all
AKS
other
HCI.
features. Yeah, that will be available on a multi-node cluster. Also, Kubernetes will run, I guess, or Azure Kubernetes services, or
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
So they're actually in preview. The AKS is in preview. They're currently, but we did the initial installations and everything was fine. It was just that like they hadn't gone through like a full test pass with single node. That's why they put it in preview. It's not that there was some limitations that they
Yeah.
found. We haven't found anything yet, but it
Yeah.
is. That's why it's in preview.
Mm.
But other than that, everything is supported. But I understand, like GPU requires a lot of hardware and everything. Of course, it may defeat the purpose because people usually get this for like, low end hardware. So, but there's no limitation. There's no programmatic limitation in the single node that will limit these, like GPU, for example, or anything like that.
Mm. So a great scenario, for example, would be if we get so with GPU support and, for example, Azure Virtual Desktop.
Yeah.
In the moment, I know a lot of customers who have, for example, Citrix servers on not in a cluster, on single nodes. So on Windows Server, single node Hyper-V with Citrix VMs on it with Citrix servers. And Microsoft is going to the virtual desktop. So you have some software like Office is not Office 365 is not supported on Windows Server 2022. So a single node Azure Stack HCI node would be the equivalent of a single node Citrix server with Windows Server virtualization, but now with, for example, virtual desktop. And if the GPU partitioning would be supported, that would be also supported on a single node. So that would be a great example why to use a single node cluster, right?
Yeah.
Do you have other examples?
Yeah, I was
maybe-
going to mention another thing that it comes to mind is Azure Percept. So, Azure Percept has some cameras and, like they can actually do, detection of, I don't know, like the, like point of sales or, it can be on like, for example, we have a customer that is on a factory floor. They're actually checking the line and detecting, any defects of the product with the camera, and then they have their own, analyzing ML and AI system to
Yeah.
analyze everything. So that's another thing that comes to mind, either in stores, like retail stores, or even like factory floors.
Mm-hmm. So I just Carl had mentioned that the Dell AX nodes can be configured with single or
Great.
dual GPU support. And I think when you showed the Azure Stack HCI catalog, you were on the Lenovo side. The two nodes that were supported single node had also GPU support.
Awesome. Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
So I have some other questions from the audience. Let me see.
Licensing, Frank, is exactly like HCI. So you go through, it's per core. So depending on how many cores the hardware has, it's like list price is $10 per core.
So that's now 10 euros also in Germany.
Okay. It's
we
10
have
euros in our case. And no product is just like HCI. It's just like HCI. And also, like the good thing is it also covers all the other things like Azure benefits, like for example, extended security updates, ESUs. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know if we had a little problem here. So for Windows Server, if you do virtual machines with Windows Server, you do it as you do it today, either through volume licensing or OEM licensing, or you have a great offering from Azure, the Azure, how it's called, the Windows Server Data Center 2022 Azure Edition. You can also put that on a single node, and then you have features like hot patching and auto managed and SMB through Quick. And I think there will other features may be coming. So all the same with a single node, there's no specialty, right?
No, exactly. And also the big thing is the extended security updates. As you know, like the 2012 Server 2012 is coming to end of life, and a lot of people with that on, you can actually Windows 2012 or any OS that requires extended security updates, ESUs. If you use them in Azure, you get free ESUs, and same thing with single node as well, and HCI.
Karim, I think this is one of the most important features we have in Azure Stack HCI if we compare Azure Stack HCI to Windows Server. So if a customer, and I know a lot of customers who have still Windows Server 2012 or Windows Server 2012 R2 VMs, and they can't leave them until the end of support. So next year we have end of support of Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2. And if you put them in the VMs in Azure, you get the free security update, I think for 3 years at least. And for Azure Stack HCI, you have the same. So if you have those VMs, put it on Azure Stack HCI, even on single node, and you have the free security. It has to be registered, but it is free, and you get the security updates for those operating systems. There will be no feature patches, but the security patches. And that's very important for a lot of customers. They are usually not allowed to run operating systems that are not in security update anymore. So this I think is a huge advantage of Azure Stack HCI over Windows Server. It's not like a technical feature, but it is, you get the free ESU, extended security updates. If you want to have that on Windows Server, it's not cheap, and you get it free with Azure Stack HCI.
Exactly. And also, like if the again, the cost of the hardware is an issue, now it is 50% less, right?
Yeah, it is. So I can answer this question from Stefan. Will GPU partitioning only be available also with Windows Server 22? It's an Azure Stack HCI feature. So it will not, as far as I know. Karim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm not.
That's what I know as well. That's what I know as well. Some of the things are HCI exclusive, Carsten. Like for example, two drives is also HCI exclusive feature.
Yeah,
it's not in Windows Server 20.
This is also a big one. Yeah, this is also a big one. If you have Windows Server, you have to license at least 16 cores. So you buy your license or you do it over Azure as subscription, but you have to license 16 cores. If your Azure Stack HCI is a small machine, so you have a machine with 4 cores or 8 cores, you only pay for the cores that the operating system sees. So Azure Stack HCI sees 8 cores, you pay 8 times $10 per month. There's even the possibility if you have a machine with much more cores. Let's say you have a 24-core hardware. In many hardwares, you can say in the BIOS only show 8 cores to the operating system, and Azure Stack HCI only sees 8, can only use 8, and only report to Azure 8. If you have Windows Server on this system and you say also only 8 cores to the operating system, you still have to license 24 cores. So that could also be an advantage to ease into your virtualization. So if you have a migration project from another hypervisor to Azure Stack HCI, and you need time to migrate your VMs, you can deduct the core count at first, start with it. 60 days are also free with Azure Stack HCI, and then you increase your core count in Azure Stack HCI when you need it. So this is, I think, also an advantage. Carl, I think a good point. So Carl is very active here. Most of the commands are from Carl. Yeah, he says he has some more use cases. Backup server, Hyper-V replica to fire up VMs in the cluster if the cluster is down. Yeah, backup server only if the backup is in VMs. You don't can use Azure Stack HCI for not virtual machine workloads. That's a dream of me. A file server, scale-out file server would be nice with the core count. But unfortunately, in the moment, Azure Stack HCI is only for virtual machines, but Hyper-V replica. But Carl, not from Windows Server. In the moment, Windows Server to Azure Stack HCI, no Hyper-V replica. At least not
Windows
with
servers. HCI to HCI is perfectly fine. Yeah, you can go up to Hyper-V replica to HCI and then come back if you want to.
Yeah. Okay, these are most of the questions. Carl has some more remarks. I can show them. Single node Azure without he has a lot of ideas, and the last one is, of course, I was referring to Windows Server Data Center subscription. You only pay the cores as with Azure Stack HCI. That's true, but only with a subscription license. Yeah. True. So if there are any more questions, this would be the time. Otherwise, Karim, we are done, and I will show just the next webinar and the conference. So if there are any last words from your side, Karim, so we should
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and watch this space. There will be, like I mentioned, more things coming. At Ignite, we have many surprises at Ignite, so make sure you watch that space.
Cool. So I will steal the screen now, and will announce the next webinar, because I'm starting to do webinars again. I had a time where I didn't do much, so why can't I go forward with the slide? Let me see. So here. Oh, it's unbelievable. If you have only one screen, it's hard to do that. So unbelievable. Why is he not moving my screen? So maybe I can tell you. Next week on Wednesday, I have a webinar with Eric Berg. We are talking, or he's presenting most of the time, about Azure monitoring. So if you are interested in Azure monitoring, next week at Wednesday. So let me see if I can share my screen. Stop screen, and I will just share it. Share screen. So now we have picture in picture, I guess. Yeah. So let me go here. Why can't I? Here.
Maybe I'll stop my screen sharing.
I don't think it's you. I think it's a problem at my side. So, but I can't. You see the picture now, but I can't move it. It's. I think the problem is on my side. So next week, Eric Berg, we will do it on Wednesday at 5:30. So 17:30 Uhr. This webinar will be in German and not in English. And I want to also, I will switch to German, because this conference is only in German language. Wir haben die Experts Live gestern in 2 Wochen ist die Experts Live in Erfurt. Das ist eine eintägige Konferenz. Wir haben noch Tickets und wir haben 12 MVPs als Präsenter zu Cloud-Themen, natürlich Azure-Themen. Wir haben also einen Cloud-Track und wir haben einen On-Premise-Track. Wer interessiert ist, mal wieder an einem Event in Person teilzunehmen, da wäre der Donnerstag, nein, es ist genau heute in 2 Wochen, am 8. September. Und wir haben eine großartige Agenda. Wer mal Lust hat, reinzugucken, die URL ist expertslive.de. Möchte ich noch darauf aufmerksam machen, weil wir haben noch ein paar Karten, sind schon weit über 100 Leute da, aber wer noch kommen möchte, wir haben noch das ein oder andere Plätzchen. Das Event ist kostenpflichtig, Verpflegung und so weiter ist inkludiert. So, und das war's von mir. Ich bedanke mich auch für euer Dabeisein. Thank you for attending the webinar. And hopefully I see you soon, either in the webinar next week or maybe in person the week after next week. And thank you, Karim, for presenting.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
So I cannot quit this. I think I can end broadcast. This was